And I have, of course, I have a glowy brooch.
Well, hello everyone. We are back for another fabulous episode of Duo Dive. Dolores is joining us from Miss DAM Jewelry in the UK, and I'm very excited to have Dolores and Patrick for another episode. And Louie's joining
And
in too.
Louie.
He wants to bring
Yay!
coach. So, Dolores, welcome to you. Thank you so much for joining, and welcome, of course, Patrick.
Looking forward to this.
I am too. Brooches? Yes, please.
Expert on brooches.
Brooches are fantastic, and we're all trying to bring back the brooch because they just add a certain sparkle to your everyday ensemble. So, Dolores, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started collecting brooches?
So I'm Dolores from Miss Dam Jewelry, and I started collecting. Oh, I started wearing brooches back in the '80s in high school when I thought I was new wave slash punk. So I thought I was all cool with my brooches, and we would go to a lot of thrift stores in Houston, and we would just shop for them. And there was this one secondhand store that just had beautiful brooches, and that's kind of where my love of brooches started. And ever since then, I've been uh, buying and collecting, and I never really sold them until about 3 years ago, or maybe four, when I went to my friend's house in New Hampshire for a visit, and she does estate sales and and house clearances. So she had all these brooches, and she says, "Girl, do you want these? I mean, they're costume jewelry, they're not." And I was like, "Yes, please." So I ended up, girl, I was just like, "Are you serious?" And she's like, and here's the thing, they weren't particularly precious or worth a lot of money, but they were worth a lot to me. So I was like, "Yeah, girl." So I took them, and I mean, there was so many of them, and I just started thought, well, I can't keep them all, so I'll just add them to my Etsy store, and that's what I did. And that kind of helped me out a lot because I make jewelry, so I was selling my own jewelry, but the vintage jewelry pulled other people into my shop that wouldn't have normally come. So, and it was hard to part with them though, because I was like, this one's for me, that's for sale. This is for me. Wait, no, this is for me too. So, so that's how I started. I mean, but I've always been into brooches because I've always, had to live on a budget. And I've always wanted to be sparkly and pretty, but you know, she ain't got the funds. Like, we all live on a budget. So the best way for me to do it is to start, collecting the vintage brooches and just dressing an everyday outfit up. You know what I mean? It just adds so much sparkle to anything. It just, when you see someone wearing a brooch, you kind of smile. You do. It kind of brings a smile, or at least it does to me. But,
Now, has it
yeah.
been all about the sparkle since the 80s? Or have you gone
Yes.
through different, like, do you get into enamel? Do you get into different types? Or is it always about the sparkle?
I think in the early days it was all about the sparkle. And but then as I got older and started to appreciate different designs, I like enameling. I like just plain brushed metal. I like it doesn't have to be sparkly. I like the Celtic design brooches now a lot. In fact, I'm really into the Celtic design brooches now.
I
So
love them, Dolores. You sent me one, and it is just fantastic.
it's been a journey. I'm not that sounds so it's been a journey with brooches, but it kind of has. It's been a really interesting journey. And if you just stay in one type of thing, you don't grow, you don't expand, you don't get the knowledge that you want to get. So I started to expand to enameling and just metal and resin and lucite brooches, and the world's your oyster when you start when you start looking at all the different kinds of brooches.
They really are, and I've
Mm.
really enjoyed the lucite brooches, and I discovered the forbidden fruit ones. Have you heard of those?
No, I've seen them, but I have not actually possessed one in my hands.
So for those of us who are uninformed, what is forbidden fruit lucite jewelry?
Uh, I don't know a lot about it, Katie. Do you know? I know the reversed
What does it look
carved
like?
lucite.
Yeah, so
Well,
forbidden fruit lucite jewelry it's lucite, the material, which was invented by the DuPont company, I believe, in the
hmm
1930s. That's the official trade name is lucite, but then there's also acrylic and all those other things. But forbidden fruit, basically, they did a whole series of fruit jewelry in the lucite material. So
so pretty.
the lucite is shaped like fruit. And I have an apple, but I believe that they did a pear and a peach and
Oh,
other ones.
fun.
Girl.
So they did different ones, and they have little rhinestones embedded in them, and they're
hmm
just beautiful.
I don't know about you, but the only thing I think of when I hear Lucite is the Friends episode where Joey went on a buying spree and bought a bunch of stuff from I Love Lucite, the store.
Yeah.
That was what, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and I
Yeah.
still remember it like it was yesterday, and I haven't seen it since then. But
I
I love
love
Lucite.
I love that
Mhm.
episode with the lucite parrot.
Yeah. It's so good.
So
I liked it. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm wondering if people stop you and compliment you on your brooches, because I have found that being out like in the grocery store or just doing my daily things, people don't usually see brooches. So when they do, they always
Right.
stop me and they're like, "Whoa, where'd you get that? That's so cool and vintage looking." And I'll say, "Well, that was my grandmother's, or I got this in the
Yeah.
antique store." So do you find that people stop you and ask you about your jewelry too?
I do. And a lot of them say, "Oh, girl, where did you get that?" And I'll say, "Oh, a charity shop." And they'll just kind of look at me like, "Oh, you didn't get it from like name brand store." I'm like, "No, no, I get all vintage jewelry." And a lot of times I wear them on my headbands. And people think that I bought the headband with that it's embellished. I'm like, no, no, it's a brooch on the headband. So I do, especially with my headbands, I get a lot more people stop me. And and funny enough, it's always a lot of older. I mean, older than me because I'm old, but older generations that stop me and will have a conversation with me about it.
Well, because they
So
probably
that's
remember
really fun.
them literally from when they wore them for the first time, at the high school dance or whatever it was. So,
Yeah.
okay, so you're
hmm
putting them on a headband. So we got bring back the brooch. Tiger and I are trying to bring back the hat pin, and you're going to bring back the headband pin. What
Headbands.
is that one called?
Headband brooch.
Yes. And that's the thing, you can put them anywhere. That's the great thing about them. You could wear one and be simply stated, or you can wear a whole bunch, you know. And either way, it just any outfit. You can wear a t-shirt and just slap a brooch on, honey, you're dressed up. You know what I mean?
True.
Now, as the neophyte in the group, and again, I'm trying to put if I have a brooch at all, it's going to go onto a hat. People have talked about the idea, like, and I've sold some, and I don't sell that many. They'll talk about the idea of clustering them.
Oh
Is
yes.
there a rule behind something like that? Is there like what's kind of the general idea of when you're clustering? What would you cluster? All the same color, or would it be all variety? What would it be?
Well, I think it's down to the individual. A lot of people will cluster with color, like they'll have all the colors, or maybe just all clear ones, or I'll cluster anything, honey. But some people go for like just all rhinestones, or just all enameled, or just all a sort, maybe all animals or all insects, or all particular styles, or just florals. I find clustering just I'll do it with anything. I am very attracted to fall colors, so I will cluster all the autumn brooches on a jacket, and when in the autumn when I wear that out. But I think if it makes you happy, do it. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it, as long as you like what you're doing with the brooches. To me, that's all that counts.
I totally agree, Dolores, and I love wearing a jean jacket and putting several pins on the jean jacket. And one of the things that I just recently added to my collection was a giant bumblebee, and I
Oh,
have hopes to put the bumblebee on as a statement brooch, and then do two smaller like scatter type pins with it, maybe flowers or something that complements
oh
it.
yeah.
I think that would be really fun. So I like that idea of the scatter pins.
That would be cute. And you could also, when someone starts a conversation, be like, save the bees.
There you go.
And now, if you're also, like you said, it all is about individual choice, but kind of as a general, or if people are trying to develop their own brooch collection, would people typically mix metals? Would they have silver tone mixed with gold tone, or would it tend to be stay with one type of metal?
From my experience, I see people tend to stick with one kind of metal. Like if it's all, but it's hard to do because the brooches came in, you've got your, your gold tone, your silver tone. You can even get like the gunmetal, the older gunmetal, or when the metal gets dark, it looks like gunmetal. So I mean, a lot of times you may not see the metal in the brooches. I mean, if it's pronged, you will. But I just think that I would mix metals personally. Because I'm that girl. I'll take that risk. Live on the edge, mix the metals. But you can mix them. I just think that I like the idea of like what Katie said. Like let's say you have a giraffe and then you have a couple of palm trees. Then so now you have a jungle theme. Do you know what I mean on your on your outfit? So yeah, you could mix metals. I'm not opposed to mixing metals. Some people like just silver tone or just um, gold tone, and that's absolutely fine. But I'm if it's a brooch, I'm into it.
Is that probably more likely that as they're building their brooch collection, they would only go after one or the other? Or do people
Yeah,
tend to go after both?
I think when people have a specific eye on something, they may tend to go towards silver tone or gold tones. Like I just like a gold tone because it may go with their skin tone better. It may match their other jewelry better. They may just wear gold or gold tone jewelry or silver tone jewelry. So they may go for that. I My aesthetic is car boot chic. Whatever goes. That's so I personally, but I think, yeah, I think you can mix metals, but I do see that some people just go for certain metals at one time.
And
And
for
what
all of us,
brooch are you wearing right now?
I'm wearing I got this, um, it's a silver tone with just packed full of rhinestones, just packed. It's like there's no room for breathing. There's so many rhinestones. And I got this at a little shop here in Clay Cross where I live, and she does vintage clothing and jewelry as well. And she also knows I'm a reseller, so she always gives me a deal. It's Lady Peacock here in Clay Cross.
oh, that's fantastic. That almost looks like a snowflake. It's just so
It
pretty.
it does. It's cold here today, so I might as well be a snowflake.
We're
But
supposed to
yeah, it's
get, we
kind
were
of.
up to 70 yesterday. We're supposed to get snow today.
Oh my. See that? Oh no. We here. The good thing about England, it stays cold. It's a constant 50 degrees.
And I like that because it is almost 80 degrees here in Florida and we're all sweating to death. So
Yeah, I don't miss that.
so
Texas.
I was curious for all of us that are in the US, we probably don't know what a car boot is. So can you explain that?
Okay, it's an outdoor. Usually, well, they have them indoors, but it's mainly an outdoor event. It's like a large flea market, and people have their cars pulled up, and they open their trunk, which is called a boot. So the boot of the car is the trunk, and it'll be on a big field somewhere. Sometimes you pay to go in, and it's just acres of people selling. But some are professional sellers. Some are people just get rid of their stuff from their house. They start in the springtime because obviously the weather here isn't conducive to winter car boot. I mean, there are some winter car boots though, but I ain't going to them. But that's what a car boot is. It's just like a big flea market out of your car.
And do you find a lot of brooches at the car boots?
I went to an indoor one recently, and I just got so many brooches. And I picked up like 8 or 9 brooches. He's like, a tenner, like 10 pounds for the whole lot. I was like,
Wow,
okay, thank you. I know,
Nice.
girl.
that is a steal.
And here's the thing: I have a few side brooches, but I'm not. There is one side brooch I'll talk about later, but uh, It doesn't necessarily matter to me if they're signed or not. It's what appeals to my eye personally, and or what I think other people will be interested in
Well, that
as
was
a
what I was going to
reseller.
ask. So, like for those that you just picked up from the car boot, were you picking those up specifically for reselling? Were they specifically for you, or did you have an idea before he said it was only 10 pounds?
No, I was just like I was making like a little pile of other stuff, and I was like, oh, you have all these brooches. And I was like, how much are they? He said, how many do you want? I was like, well, hang on, honey, let me get them all up. And so I had I wasn't there to buy brooches that day. That was in my mindset, but when I saw them, I was like, oh, I can't walk away now. Were they for me or for resale? Yes. The short answer,
Excellent
yes, it was,
answer.
it was for both.
Now, when you're out shopping for brooches, you said that it's really what catches your eye, but with resale, do you look for particular things to resell because you know that they would do a little bit
Right.
better?
Yes, I do. I will pick up side pieces if I here's the thing, guys, this little tip. Always carry a loop on your keychain, a little loop with you so you can read if there's a name. You don't have, like I said, it doesn't have to have a name on it. But if it does have a name on it, like Sarah Coventry does well here. Um, who else? Oh gosh, Martin, like Coro does well here. Uh, and there's another one that does well here too, and Hollywood brooches. And I'll talk about those in a minute. And I'll look to see, but a lot of times it's sparkly. Sparkly sells.
I
A lot of
totally
times it's multicolored that sells the best for me.
I find that the bigger the bling, the more
Hmm.
people really go after it. I also find that if it's uranium and it has stones that glow, people really like it. And then any type of figural brooch, I find that's
Mm, that
unusual. People don't seem to find like a giant enameled penguin every day, or a giant bee, or a giant spider. So, a lot of people do look for those. So I kind of keep my eye out
mm.
for those things too.
Yeah, cats and dogs do really well for me because this is a nation of pet lovers. You know what I mean? Our pets, we don't keep dogs in the backyard here. They're in the house. You know, and cats don't roam around. They're in the house. So as a result, like I said, we're a nation of pet lovers. So cats and dog brooches do really well for me. And that doesn't matter what age they are, if they're blingy or not, just cats and dogs.
Now, besides having a name on a brooch, how do you really date jewelry?
I date it based on the, well, the back. I could base it on like some of the older brooches have that looks like a V. It's almost like a riveted V on the back where the I don't think I have one here, of course. Do I? No. Um, like some of them, I'm trying to see. Sometimes the back you can tell by the metal, and like oh, here's a good example. So you see the back of that with like little rivets and all of it.
That's amazing.
I think I've got an
That
example of the V-shaped one.
okay, and that's the front. Oh, go ahead. Oh yeah, exactly. Hmm.
That's on that one.
Because now it's all a lot of the newer ones are all one piece except for the pin. So all of this would be you wouldn't have these little rivets anymore. It would just be all one piece of metal. Let me see if I have a newer one
Now,
here.
quick question, because the one you're showing, I actually just came across one that was similar to that, but the pin portion of it, the rivet was
Hmm.
still there, but it spun. I mean, it was super,
Yes.
super loose. Now, does that affect the value? Because then I wasn't sure if that meant it was about to fall apart. I'd never seen it like that. So I left it behind because I was buying it for resale. But I was curious.
Right.
It seemed solid. It just spun. And I didn't know if it was designed that way or is there something that came loose?
Some do spin all the way around. Some brooches do. There's almost like this little rivet in the middle. Sorry. And there's uh, a mechanism that will spin it. Now, if it's spun partly, either it was coming loose or the spinner in the brooch was broke, because some brooches will spin. They shouldn't spin really fast. You can move them,
Okay.
So some brooches will spin like that, and they're actually quite coveted, the
All right.
spinny
This
brooches.
one would have been like a pinwheel. I could have held on to it and spun it around.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. That
it seemed broken. And so I
right.
guess I left it behind. Now I'm wondering if that's like some cutting edge spiral spinning bracket that I left behind.
I mean, you can kind of tell though if it's like if it wobbles and spins, that's an issue.
Okay, and it did. It was just
Yeah,
so
okay.
loose that it just didn't seem to be
Then
mounted
that was
properly.
coming.
So,
Yeah, that was probably got to pop
and then
off.
how would something like that, like I said, I left it behind, but how would something like that typically affect the value? Say the front of the brooch was in perfect condition and it was high quality, whatever, but that the actual pin back is not either it's broken or it's not attached properly. How much does that affect value?
It would probably affect the value as selling it just a brooch. Now, if you were selling it for spares and repairs, That's, you would probably still get less for it, but you could still do that. And a lot of times you'll see here on our eBay here, you get whole bags of spares and repairs. Why would anybody want broken brooches? Well, sometimes, for instance, if you're missing a rhinestone from this and you see another brooch that has missing stones, but it matches, you can repair it from the other brooch because if you see this is old because the rhinestones are a little bit cloudy, still in good condition. But if I put a brand new rhinestone in there, you would know. It would be really shiny. Yeah, it would. So a lot of times people will get the spares and the repairs to repair brooches they already have. I get spares and repairs because I make jewelry out of broken brooches. I mean, it's like I leave no brooch behind. I mean, so
fabulous.
And I do. It's like a collar, and I just attach all the. And because even if the stones are missing, if I place them just right, you won't ever see that on the repurposed necklace.
People
now, I
do
actually have a
that.
question since we're talking about repair, and we're drifting a little bit beyond true brooches, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to bring back the hat pin, so I'm going to show you mine. How do you, I've started a collection of these chauffeur badges.
Mhm.
So this is a 1951 Illinois licensed chauffeur badge. I wear it in my hat that I wear in the car. When I picked up this one, I got this as part of a lot, and I was unaware that the pin had been broken off.
Mhm.
My question ends up being is how would I fix this? That appears to be soldered as one, it's clearly once was a separate piece, but it was soldered onto the back. Is there a way to pull that off? Or how would I even, like we're talking about repairs, how do you repair a pin back if it's something like this?
Well, what a lot of times people do with the pin backs is if it's broken like that, they'll remove the pin back completely. And they'll affix another one to the back. So, and they'll probably put in the description, new back. That one, because it's soldered on, it might be a little difficult. Because like with a brooch like this, if this back broke here, I could just clip that off and that off with wire cutters and then put a new back on it.
Okay. So then
With
how,
yours,
I think it's interesting you said, and that would be good if a reseller did that and they would mark it as repaired or whatever.
yeah.
How would something like that impact the value?
That would be, so let's, that would make it a little bit more inexpensive than what you would expect to get for it. You'd get a little bit less for it. As long as you disclose the fact, because some people want the whole brooch, like they want the whole thing intact, which is fair enough. I do. I'm not opposed to buying something that I really like on the front. If the front is spectacular and the back's been repaired, ain't no one gonna see the back. Someone will still buy it.
Right.
And they might be getting a deal because they know, you're gonna mark it down a little. Well, I would mark it down a little bit, a little less than what I'd normally get for it. And then I'm still getting, I'm still selling it, and someone's still getting a bargain and getting what they want because they just want the front of, they want the look. They're not really concerned about the back.
For the ones that are signed, I can't say I've sold enough of them to know this. Is it the pin? Is the pin back ever what's signed, or is it the brooch that would be signed?
Usually if I show you, here's a good one. So if you see, it's usually on the metal part. So here, sorry, it says Sarah Cove, and so it's usually on the metal part on the back of the brooch, and it's going to be, and usually they hide them up really well. So you think you'd want to advertise your brand. So, but you're literally like with your thing going, where is it at? And you're looking for it. So they're hidden up quite well. At least on the older ones, they're hidden up quite well. But if you look really hard, you can find them. But they're just kind of in the metal somewhere.
Now, Delores, I've always heard that sometimes the brooch would be signed and the earrings wouldn't be if it were a match set, or sometimes the earrings are signed and the brooch is not. Is that true?
What I've seen, yes, because they were usually sold in a set together. So you would have the earrings and the brooch. I've gotten Sarah Coventry brooches, and the earrings were with it in a box, and the earrings didn't have anything on it, but the brooch did. And I knew darn well they were together. So, and I sold them as a set. And then when I Googled it, they came up as a set. So that happens. So, or sometimes the earrings are signed and the brooch. I've seen it more where the brooch is signed and the earrings aren't. That's what I've experienced. And I just think maybe it's, they figure it's going to be sold as a set. You should know they're Sarah Coventry earrings or Coro earrings, a brooch. You should know that. But if you find them separate, it's a little difficult because you're not sure if, if you buy the earrings first and then the brooch later, you're like, are these a match? Or, they look alike. But a lot of times the earrings weren't signed because they were sold as a set.
Now, using that, go ahead, Katie. Sorry.
Does that affect value if you have a brooch that you know is supposed to have earrings, but you don't have the earrings?
No, not necessarily. I've never had an issue with it. I mean, you might sell a little, like you'd get more for a set. Let's be for real. You get more for a set. But a lot of times, a lot of people don't want the earrings because they're clip-ons. I mean, I don't mind a pair of clip-on earrings. And you can do so many different things with clip-on earrings other than wear them on your ears. But I don't think it impacts at all. I think more people really want the brooch, and the earrings are like an afterthought. In my experience,
convert the clip-ons to regular posts.
You can put them on regular posts, but I just think I would do that because I have pierced ears, but I'd also wear them with clip-ons. But I think a lot of people like who are buying, especially when they're wanting the brooch. I don't think they've never said I don't want the earrings, but they were more about the brooch.
They're not going to pay extra to get the earrings.
Correct.
They just want the brooch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And my question, coincidentally, was also about value. So my question was, and it's probably more, I'd say let's move away from something that is Sarah Coventry or is Coro, that you just have an attractive rhinestone brooch, say a circular style brooch. What is going to be the price variation? Like you said earlier, sometimes it's not about the signature, it's about the design. Right. How much of a price increase will you get if you have an unsigned piece than if you have a Sarah Coventry piece or you have a Weiss piece that is signed? Will you always get more money, or is it just about the design?
Honestly, you probably get more money for the signed pieces just because a lot of people are into, if they're looking at your shop and they ping on a brooch and they read the description, it's usually because it's a Weiss or a Sarah Coventry or Hollywood or Coro. But if I had two next to each other, so if I had this one, which is signed, and this one, which is not, I mean, if it was me, I'd go for this one always.
Me too.
And there's nothing wrong with this beautiful brush one, but this one's signed and this one's not. So I think you can ask for more money with a signed brooch. You just have to, and you could ask the same amount for this brooch, and it may sit longer, but someone will come along and want this just because of the way it looks.
Well, and I found that some people collect, say, just Weiss or just Coro,
mm-hmm.
or they're looking for a particular brand. I personally have a big collection of Weiss. I'm a huge fan of Weiss, but of course, any sparkly brooch, I will definitely pick up.
Yeah, I wasn't always a brand person because I'm like, I don't really care, but that has changed recently, and I'm into what they call Hollywood brooches. It's a brand name, and I'll show you this one here. It's purple.
Oh, amazing.
And the signature it's really hard to see. It's kind of rubbed off now, but it's right here. And it says Hollywood. Now, there's several Hollywood brooches out there. This Hollywood brooch company it's a British one, and it was started in 1918 by the Brooches brothers in Birmingham. And they made, this is why I like it. They made they weren't expensive. They made colored enamels, Austrian crystals, different metals. They did floral motifs, animal motifs, a lot of Celtic style brooches or Scottish style brooches. And they sold them in Woolworths.
Wow.
That to me, just that alone. Here's why, because Woolworths, which is not in existence anymore. Me and my mom used to go to Woolworths all the time back in Texas, and I loved Woolworths. And then when I found out that Hollywood brooches are pretty, But then I realized that they mainly sold them in Woolworth stores, which doesn't make them expensive, obviously, even back in the day. But it just conjured up those happy memories. And I was like, okay, that's it. I'm out. I'm looking for all Hollywood brooches.
Well, I
And
like
I
the
think it,
two that were mass marketed towards the everyday, like 1950s woman, because
that's
they're
exactly,
so
yeah.
pretty and practical and classy.
But does that mean that they are more prolific, so they're not as valuable, or do they still garner some of the same prices as a Sarah Coventry?
They can garner some of the same prices because the company ceased trading or ceased manufacturing in 1972. And Woolworths closed here in the UK in 2008. So, after 1972, they weren't made anymore. So, and you think, well, because there'd be a lot of them, they're hard to, I've not found any in the wild.
Interesting. Because to me, as an outsider, not knowing about jewelry or that brand at all, if I hear that, oh, it's sold to Woolworths, I'd be, oh, then that's low quality and like no one would want it. That's interesting.
I mean,
Although that was a beautiful design, yes.
And I just, like Katie said, I think it was sold to the everyday woman. You didn't have to go to a fancy department store and make a lot of money. You were just there shopping for your family or doing whatever, and you think, I'll treat myself today with a brooch, from Woolworths. And just the fact that Woolworths doesn't even exist anymore is just, and like I said, to me, it brings so many happy memories that now I'm on the hunt for any Hollywood brooches now. That's not to be confused with Joseph of Hollywood. Joseph of Hollywood brooches bring a lot of money, but they're signed Joseph. And it just has this name. Where the Hollywood brooches, it says Hollywood in a rectangle.
I've only seen one Joseph of Hollywood brooch here, and it was asking top dollar. So I didn't get it. I mean, it was beautiful.
Not to be confused with another Hollywood jewelry products company called Ricard of Hollywood brand, and they only made brooches between the late 1930s and the end of the 40s. That's it. So they're very exclusive. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that brings me to my next question: is brooches that were made by a particular company that was only around for a number of years, like for example, Weiss. Weiss wasn't around that long. I would expect those to have a little bit of a higher value than some of the ones that were, like Trifari. I know that their brooches, depending on what market is and the design and all of the different factors, can bring good money. But Trifari was around for an incredibly long time compared to say Weiss, or the Hollywood company you just mentioned. So how does that all play into value?
Well, obviously, if I pick up a Joseph of Hollywood, I mean, I would lose my mind. If I saw that at the car boot or the charity shop, I would be like, oh. But, and again, like the Hollywood jewelry products, which is Ricard of Hollywood, I would be, which was even made even less time than Joseph. That was only made for like less than 10 years. So they would get a lot of money. I mean, because of the fact that they're rare. And I'm not just saying, oh, it's rare. I'm saying that you won't find a lot of them simply because they weren't made that often or they weren't made for that long of a period. So yeah, you'll get better money for a brooch that's harder to find and, wasn't commonly made. Like you said, like Sarah Coventry, beautiful stuff. Trifari, beautiful stuff. But you could, you can readily find them. I can readily find Sarah Coventry and Trifari here in the UK. So, it's not that they're not pretty. It's just that you find something like Ricard of Hollywood, which was made in less than 10 years, you're really onto something. You're really finding something great.
And does size affect value? Because I've always found that the more rhinestones and the bigger the brooch, the more you can sometimes get for it. Do you find that to be true?
Yes, I do. I find that my bigger brooches, I can price them up and they fly out. And people are like, yep, because they're big. Now, the smaller brooches, if there's a lot of detail, again, we're talking like animals or, flowers are very popular, but anything like even if it's a small animal and it's like detailed, or anything, for instance, Wedgwood made brooches. And because it's so detailed and it's they bring a lot of money. Not necessarily here, but
Well,
well,
So
Wedgwood
because
that's a
more
good
common.
example of. I had a question I wanted to ask because most of the brands that you've mentioned, maybe one of the things that made them collectible is because they're not made anymore, or they were sold in stores that don't exist anymore. But something like Wedgwood, or I happen to have a brooch. It's actually a clip from John Hardy. That it's vintage, but John Hardy is still making jewelry. Wedgwood is still, I don't know if they're still making brooches, but they're still making stuff. Does the fact that the company name still has name recognition help or hurt the sale of a vintage piece from them?
I think it helps because now you know that they make products now, but you get a product from um, way back in the day, that was made by Wedgwood or another company. Even if they're still making them, if you get something like from the 50s, 60s, 70s, that's even kind of more coveted because now you can have the piece from when they first started or when they were young company as opposed to having a new piece. So, I
Excellent.
mean, I had a Wedgwood brooch and I just sent it on to Christy at Chippy Wee. So here you go, girl.
Beautiful. Now, are there actual fakes of brooches? Because this is something I've been trying to research with my Weiss. Is I've heard that there are
Mhm.
Weiss fakes, and I've never seen one that I know of. But I was looking at some of the marks, and they're very different. Like some are on a
Right.
circle, some are inscribed, some are kind of sloppy on the back, which is odd for Weiss, being that Weiss was such a good quality manufacturer. So I don't know if there actual are fakes.
Well, there probably are, especially if it's a sloppy. Because if they went through all the trouble to make the beautiful brooch, why are they just gonna slap a messy old Weiss on there? You know what I mean? They're gonna take their time. And the thing about a lot of jewelry companies is over time they change their symbols. They change their markings. So you can actually look up markings from different years. And, like a Weiss brooch in 1956 might have been a different mark in 1965. Do you know what I mean? They may have changed the logo or the brand logo. So I don't think a messy one. I think that would be that might be either they just had a bad manufacturing day that day or it's fake, which it can happen. Do you know what I mean? But
And
like,
Jafari, the nice thing about them is that you can date their brooches so well because their marks are
mhm.
really well documented.
Yeah, exactly. And like, well, here's a prime example of name changing in brooches. So I have this, like I showed this little leaf brooch here, lovely brush leaf, and it's copyrighted JJ. Now, that is Jeanette Jewelry. I don't know if you've ever heard of Jeanette Jewelry.
I love
Um,
Jeanette Jewelry.
right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, so initially they started off as Providence Jewelry Company in 1935. Okay. Then after a while, the guy's brother joined. So they said, okay, we're gonna call it Lisker and Lisker now, because that was their last name. Uh, so now it's Lisker and Lisker. And then after World War II, they decided to change it to Jeanette because it was named after their mother and father. It was like in honor of their mother and father. They changed. The father's name was John, and the mother's name was Etta, so they called it Jeanette.
Oh, wow.
Then, wait, there's more. Then, it in 1970, they started marking it with uh, a number, Roman numerals on the cards, and I don't know if they were still marking the back. Then in 1986, they started calling themselves artifacts.
That is quite a history of name changes.
Right, exactly. And then obviously, by I think they ended production in 2006, I think, for good. So so you went from all these names to the last name was Artifacts, which is nothing like Jeanette, but it was the same people.
Now, did you say at one point they were listener and listener?
Lisker and Lisker. I
Lisker.
like, yeah,
Lisker.
Lisker and
Unlike
Lisker.
listener. Okay.
Yeah, and then they changed that to Jeanette. So I mean, that's the thing. If you got a brooch made in before World War One, or sorry, before World War Two, and they were called Lisker and Lisker, then after the Second World War, you started buying as Jeanette. They're the same. It's the same company.
But I love that kind of stuff because then you actually know, okay, this is pre-World War II, this is post-World War II.
Exactly.
And you don't have the
Yeah.
confusion of even like the Trafari, Crown Trafari. You got to pull out Katie's little cheat sheet and be like, okay, it's got a copyright on it. And it's, but exactly was this done? But it's simpler to know that they just changed their names.
Yeah, and they changed it several times over all these years. And they were like a bit like Hollywood. They used colored enamels, a lot of metal, but their pieces were very, very artistic, and to the point where they were art. I mean, I know that doesn't look very artistic, but if you look very closely, there's like variation,
Mm-hmm.
these lines, and they were almost like artistic pieces. So they're actually quite easy to tell.
Now,
If you
did
see
any of
something,
the name changes, did they ever coincide with a change in I guess maybe the quality of their manufacturing? Like at some point, did the 80s version go, they were garbage?
well, I wouldn't say garbage,
Okay, we
but
didn't say garbage. We don't say we
you
they
know,
don't belong in a
but
car boot. We're good.
wait, it's a carbon cheek. No, but yes, because in 86 they outsourced some of their uh, jewelry to be made.
Okay.
So you're
Oh,
not going to be in charge of the manufacturing process because it's not being made with you anymore. So yes, I imagine there are some pieces that are not as quality as the pieces that before 1986 because they were outsourcing. I don't know where or to whom, but they were started to put some of this stuff outsourcing, which will, because you don't have the control of your own quality, will be an issue.
now that's an interesting point you just made about them outsourcing. And I'm wondering if some of the older brooch manufacturers, say, maybe 20s through the 50s, were all of the brooches made in the USA, or did they actually outsource any of them in Japan?
I think, I think that would have been expensive for them to do that, and especially between the 40s to the like 70s or 80s, because it was all in house and they had people working for them doing it. And you have to think they have to tell them the design, they have to make the design, you have to approve the design. It has to be, and if they get shipped over a whole pallet of brooches that are substandard, what are you going to do with them? Do you know what I mean? So I think at that point, at that time, I don't think they'd have risked it. Also, they wouldn't have risked their name.
Right.
True.
Now, with their name, did any of these brands and any of them, even the early ones, drift into working with precious metals or precious stones, or was it
Uh,
always costume?
yeah, no. The Jeanette company did use silver a lot, sterling silver in a lot of their pieces originally, and a lot of enameling with silver, with the silver, so, like the colored enamels. So they were quite, yeah, they would use precious metals in there. I don't know if they used gold, but I know they definitely used sterling silver in a lot of their pieces. And I don't know if later they probably did it.
And are
And
those
honestly,
marked sterling silver?
they would be marked sterling silver. Yeah. I don't think they'd say 925. I think it would actually say, I mean, because obviously 925 is more, like it would say sterling silver on it and
Wonderful.
not,
Well, as
again, I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Dolores.
No, I'm just saying that and they would be the higher end brooches that Jeanette made.
And those
Um,
probably would carry more value.
mhm. And I think they might be a little bit rarer too, because it's easy to produce something that maybe not be, honestly, may not be quite, this is a good, beautiful piece. But if there was a little something, you could still sell that. But you mess up, silver is soft. You mess it up, you know, it's going to be an issue. So I think they were probably a higher end and they were probably made there. I don't think they outsourced that. I think after 86, they were just like outsourcing to everybody.
Now, you talked a little bit about the Hollywood brooches and that being something that you're on the lookout for, but what are some of your other holy grail pieces that you'd love to add to your collection?
Okay, my holy grail. I would love to find a set of poodle brooches and earrings. like
Oh, that would
vintage.
be amazing.
And I'm not even a dog person. I'm a cat person, but I have cat brooches. But it would just, and I want it to be like, I already know what I want. I've never seen it, but I know it exists. Why? Because I just do. Because I'm psychic that way. But I would like to get like a poodle earring uh, and brooch set. I don't know why. I just think that would be something about that. Just says, oh, that would
Would
be
this
it.
be a rhinestone set or?
I wouldn't care.
Oh,
It
okay.
wouldn't even have to be. It'd be helpful if it was rhinestone, but I'm not gonna, poo-poo it because it's not rhinestone. I'm gonna take it, and I want it to be an original, um, like from the '50s, is what I mean.
My
It doesn't have to be marked or anything. I don't care who makes it.
Well, how I got started collecting brooches was through my grandmother. She actually gifted me her Boucher poodle brooch, and that started
Mm.
my whole love of brooches. And I had so much fun wearing them, and I started buying more. So there is something out there for you, Dolores. I know you're going to find it, and maybe look up that Boucher poodle and see if you can get a good deal. I know Boucher brooches can go pretty expensive.
I
Now,
know.
is it
I
also a
would.
dream that you want to find it as a set, or do you want to build the set, like find the brooch and then suddenly stumble across the matching earrings later?
I would take either one.
Okay.
If that was the way it had to be, if that's the way it played out, then I would do that. But here's the thing. So here's another fun thing about JJ, Jeanette Jewelry. They made a brooch that they called the Scarlet O'Hara that looks like what Scarlet O'Hara wore in the movie Gone with the Wind. Just saying.
Oh, wow. Now, I'm
It's
sure
like
because
blue.
that has ties to the movie, that probably
Yeah,
would hold a little bit more value.
yeah, it probably would. It's called the Scarlet O'Hara brooch.
I want to
That'd
go
Fantastic.
be.
back to what you mentioned about just because you're talking about the jewelry, your unicorn of the earrings. You mentioned earlier with clip earrings that there's other ways to wear clip earrings. And
Mhm.
I also know just coming across things, there's dress clips, there's shoe clips. I've got something that's called a clip. I don't know what it's for. What's the popularity of items like that? Do people just want a brooch, a true traditional brooch, or what is the market for those other types of pieces, even though, and how would you
Right.
wear them or how would people use them?
Well, I would. Okay, so yes, brooches are the main thing that sells. I do sell clip-on earrings, but they sit a little longer than the brooches. They will eventually sell. Now, clip-on earrings, you can use them as shoe clips off the top of your shoes. Like if you're a woman, you can, or you wear shoes that are really cute. You can clip on to the front of your shoe, so it looks like it's a shoe clip. And if it's a good springy earring, it'll stay on. The other thing you can do is, when you have a jean jacket and you don't button it, you just have it open. Well, where the buttonholes are, you clip them on, so you look like you have brooches all the way down, but they clip on earrings.
Oh, how clever. I
Oh,
never
that's a
thought of
great
that.
idea. Now, this is a
Yeah.
question where because I know there is such a thing as a dress clip, there is such a thing as a shoe clip, and then of course we're talking about clip-on earrings. How do you know when you're looking at them which one is which? How do you know one is an earring versus one is a shoe clip versus one of the dress clip?
Okay, a dress clip and a shoe clip have prongs, and they look a little sharp. Like, well, I don't know about the dress clip, but the shoe clip looks like it's got teeth, like metal teeth, like you wouldn't with your finger in there. You know, it's got like little metal teeth, and you clip them onto your shoe, and you fold them down, and then to the top of the pretty
So the
rhinestone part.
idea behind the teeth is they're actually kind of digging into the cloth or the leather of the shoe.
Yeah,
Okay. So
mhm,
that's what keeps them on. Okay.
yeah. So a dress clip, I don't think they're as violent of a clip. Um, but I don't come across a lot of dress clips. I honestly don't. I come across a lot of scarf clips, but not, and that's a whole different thing, a scarf clip.
Those are the ones that have the like a ring on the back of them, like a
Uh-huh.
circle
Yeah.
back. So
Yeah.
what I have, I don't know if you want to show Katie. So what I've
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
is it's a
Ooh.
John Hardy. It's signed, and
Oh.
it is a clip. So some people are listing it as a hair clip, and I showed this to Katie, and so there are like some teeth up there,
Oh. I wouldn't put that in my hair, child.
but I don't know if there's enough teeth to keep this in somebody's hair. So I don't
No,
know if this is more of a dress clip
I
or
think that'd be more of a dress clip or like a clip. Like let's say you're wearing like a blazer and you had like a pocket, you could clip it there.
okay.
You know,
Oh,
or yeah,
I knew it
that
wasn't an
makes sense.
earring. I at least get credit for that.
that would
Ooh, that take
perfectly
the
work.
ear off.
Now, speaking of clips, I love duet brooches, and I'm curious if you have any of those in your collection or you see them in England.
Do I've not seen a duet. Personally, I've not seen a duet brooch here. So
They're
nor do I have any in my collection. I wish I did.
And for everybody wondering what a duet brooch is, it basically is a brooch that can be worn as a brooch, or you can take it off and wear it as a dress clip.
Hmm. Yes, that's what we do get a lot is a brooch and pendant situation. You know, where it's a brooch and it's a pendant. In fact, this one is that this Sarah Coventry one is a see the little hook, the little hook. Well, okay, let's do this. The little hook there. So you could put a chain through that and wear it as a necklace or as a brooch. So I see a lot of those dual, like the dual brooch where it's a pendant and a brooch, but not the dress clip. I have not come across those.
And I like the dual pendant and brooch because it
Mm,
gives a lot of versatility to the wear.
exactly. You could wear it either way. You could wear it as a brooch or a necklace, whatever tickles your fancy.
Now,
Well,
does the brooch piece come off when you turn it into a pendant, or is it just it
No,
just sits there?
it. So what this is like you could slide a chain through that and just attach it to a chain and it would just hang, or you could take it off the chain, but the brooch back stays on it. Yeah,
Okay.
it
Now
doesn't
there
come
was
off.
one that I had shown Katie before, and we she had one opinion. I had a slightly different opinion. Because I don't, but Katie, I'm sure is right. She knows. But so this one is designed where there are all the leaves, but then there's kind of like this stem piece that comes up and loops in. Was
Hmm.
that just artistically designed to be part of the brooch, or does that convert this to a pendant? So it has the brooch back, but if you did it as a brooch, it would sit like this. If you did it as a necklace, it would kind of hang a little
Right.
bit at an angle. But is that just coincidence that it did that, or would that be designed to be a convert?
That to me looks like coincidence, but
Okay.
you could also use it as you could put a chain through it, like a thin chain, and then wear it as a
If Katie
brooch.
and
Yeah.
Delores both think so, then they are correct.
that's what I think. Just
Yep, that's
Yeah, I think
you
it's
and Katie
designed.
agreed. So you guys are the experts.
Yeah, I think
Now,
it's designed.
as we get ready to close out the show, I would love to see some of the brooches you brought with you today, Dolores, because you
Okay.
really have an amazing collection.
So this, like I showed you guys, this first one, this is my Hollywood brooch, which that's more of a Celtic. I know it doesn't look Celtic or Scottishy, but that's more of a Scottish feel, that one. And it's got the purple glass gem in it. So that's one of them. This one is probably my favorite. And it's not fancy, but it's a cat on a broom. Look at
Oh,
her.
that is just fantastic. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you just don't see every day.
I know. I just love that. Especially here, because Halloween, vintage Halloween, ain't really a thing here. They didn't really start celebrating it. So I think in the 90s. So, and these two, again, I showed you this one earlier. The autumn colors are my favorite.
I love those too, Dolores. Now, are those glass stones in that brooch?
Yes, they are. Hmm.
And that gets into kind of another question that I'm curious about is, do you mainly pick up stones, brooches that have glass stones, or do you mind if they're plastic?
I think it depends on the age. If it's an older brooch, like if it's from the 30s, 40s, or 50s, if it's plastic and the plastic is in good shape, because sometimes it gets scratched really easy, I won't mind. I don't mind if it's a plastic. If it's or if the frame is a plastic and it's got glass rhinestones, those are amazing. The plastic brooches, oh, they're so hard to find. They're like this 50s plastic with glass rhinestones in them, and they're amazing. And I have, of course, I have a glowy brooch.
Oh, I love that.
They're pretty.
Man, that's
Oh,
gorgeous.
on the rhinestones. And again, I like the Celtic brooches. I'm a fan. So
Oh,
that's a
I really
purple.
like those.
And then this is I think they call it, I can't remember what they call it now. It's like a good luck type of thing, the way it's all the different stones in it. I'd like to find a skin dew brooch, which a skin dew is the knife that Scotsmen put in their sock when they're wearing their kilt. It's like it's decorative. It's not to fight. It's like a decorative thing. It's called a skin dew. And I would like to find a brooch that looks like a skin dew, which is like a little knife. So I haven't found
That's
one yet.
amazing. I have a sword brooch, like a swashbuckling pirate sword with cabochon
Yeah,
in
there's,
it, which is fun.
and then of course I've got the my favorite color. Well, after green is purple. And again, look at that. That is, oh,
I love
it's
those kind of
it's
twisted
almost
brooches.
it's almost like a art glass cabochon because it's glass.
And for all of our listeners that are probably wondering what a cabochon is, could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know that that term comes up in sales and so forth.
Yeah, so the cabochon is just it's a flat either has a flat back or a pointed back. This has kind of like a pointed back, and it's placed into a setting. So it's a setting of like this brooch, and it's got the metal prongs. So cabochon is either it can be glass, metal, not metal, glass, stone, or plastic, and it just sets into a setting. And because it has no holes, it has to sit in something. That's a cabochon. I think it's French. I'm not sure. Don't quote me. Don't quote me.
I thought a cabochon was just not was it was all of that, but it's also not faceted.
Right, correct. It's not.
Okay.
It's loose. So you'd have to set it into something. Yeah, and which I love cabochon. And then I have this one, which has the little bitty safety.
Oh, that is amazing. So, how would you wear a brooch like that?
I would just have it pinned here. Oh, well, wrong side. Already got a roach there. I would just pin it like that, where it's pinned next to it. And the thing is, you could clip it onto a sweater, but it's not a really heavy chain, so it might break the chain if you're using it to clasp like the sweater. You get the sweater chains. I think that chain is too loose for that. It just goes right next to it. You could just put it right next to it, and then have it on there so you don't lose your brooch.
Now, seeing something like that, I would assume that that was either then a precious stone or a more precious metal. Was that still a costume piece that had the safety chain to it?
Oh yeah, it's a costume piece.
Really?
Honey, people didn't want to lose their costume jewelry back.
Okay.
So, what era were those safety chains around?
Between I think the mid 40s to almost the mid 60s. They were around for a long time. Because and here's the thing, it's not because not like today, and I'm not gonna like say, but we are a throwaway society. If we lose something, we're like, oh, let's go buy another one. Do you know what I mean? They weren't like that back then. People didn't have that kind of disposable income. So they were very careful, even with the costume jewelry people, they coveted the item and they took very good care of it. And this was just to ensure they didn't lose it.
Now, I've heard that the safety clasps on brooches were actually invented not so that you would protect yourself from being stabbed, but so it would stay on your shirt and not fall off. Is that
Yes.
true?
Yes, it's to keep it from falling, from you losing it.
So if you have a safety clasp on a brooch, then what really is the need for the safety chain? It's just an extra measure of security.
Yeah. So if I was wearing, sorry, wrong side. If I was wearing this and the brooch came off, it would still hang.
Fabulous. Okay.
So that's what that, and I have another, of course, I have a Sarah Coventry, the little pineapple.
Oh, I love the
She's,
pineapple. I have Sarah
oh, she's so
Coventry
cute.
strawberries, but I need a pineapple.
Oh, and then I have another glowy brooch that I got off. Where's my thing? There it is.
Oh, I love those. Now, when did they stop using uranium glass stones in brooches? Do you know?
See, I wasn't sure if they were actually uranium.
Oh,
I thought they were a different substance, and I don't know what it is, but it's something. I don't know. It's not the lead because I know that doesn't glow, but I wasn't sure if it was uranium in the beads. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know
I
there's
have,
different substances that can light up under black light, so
yeah,
it's possible that
I
it's
call them uranium. I say
uranium.
uranium, but I don't think they are actual uranium. I don't know why. I feel like I've heard that somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like you've heard something. And then this one is, see, here's me getting away from the,
Oh, that's so beautiful.
so there's no rhinestones in that. It's just enameled, a lovely colored enamel. And that's the back.
Now, with backs, I know that you have different dating methods, and I've always heard that if the pin extends past the clasp a little bit, it's older. If it has the
Hmm.
C style clasp, that it's older. But are
Hmm.
they still making any of those methods today?
I have, and I look at a lot of brooches, and I even look at new ones because that's who I am. Because I'll buy a new brooch. I'll buy a brand new brooch. If it's beautiful, I'll buy it. So I've not seen on new brooches the V's or the rivets or the uh what else do we say? The rivets
The
and
C
or the
clasp?
longer or the yeah the longer one, the longer stick. I haven't seen those in newer brooches. That's just me personally. They may make them, but I think, when you look at this, a lot of work went into that one little piece. I
The
mean,
fact that each of those is riveted on is just amazing.
yeah. And so I don't know if I wouldn't have thought so. And a lot of times it's all one big piece of metal in a mold. So it's just like they dump, they're not like putting individual things on there. The last thing
At,
they put on is a stick.
at what point did they start? And maybe this falls outside the definition of a brooch, but I happen to have a pin that I picked up, and I would consider it a brooch, but it has a pin. This is what it looks like, but it's
Oh,
definitely newer. But it has the like almost like the tie tack
yeah,
back.
like a stick pin.
So I can't imagine this is a tie tack. I don't think,
Mm-mm.
just from the design. At what point did this become? I don't even know. I don't even know if it's common. But at what point did they start doing that? And would that still be considered a brooch?
Um, I think yes, it would still be considered a brooch, and I think or in like the stick pins like that. I've got some old pewter ones that I've had. They were made in Sheffield, and I've sold them already. But they had the same. But they had the older pin on the back, and so that was made in the 50s. So when they started doing that, I think it's a matter of the company who makes them. I don't think it's any era for any particular reason. It could be easier to have made them that way because you can put the whole thing in a mold, including, and mold it even with a pin on it, and then you just add the cap.
Oh, right. Okay.
That makes so much sense. I never really thought about brooches being set into a mold, but that
Well,
makes
the metal would be like your newer pieces. They could just like mass produce them, but bam, yeah, but bam, you know what I mean? It's like da, 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 and then just add the goes on a production line, just to some degree.
now the prong set brooches. I would imagine there would be someone actually hand setting them.
Yes, that's a little different. That's why they're worth more because you have to hand prong each one of those down. You have to be careful too, as not to scratch the glass because if you're using crystal or Austrian crystal, you don't want to scratch that.
And of
And
course, that's probably a much better method of construction because the stone isn't going to fall out.
Exactly. It's not going to fall out. It's not going to come unglued because a lot of them now are glued in.
now the last piece
The
that I had pulled from what I have either from my own collection versus things I'm selling is
oh
the
wow,
lapel. Sorry, trigger warning, clowns.
the clown.
Uh, is the idea of this is a bad example because it's just plastic, but the idea of the lapel pin. And
Hmm.
sometimes they've got the little cap on the bottom, or sometimes it's just the
Yeah,
stick. Do you still see much of a market for lapel pins like that?
I've had lapel pins in my shop, and they sat for a while, and they eventually sold. There's usually probably someone buying them for their partner or father or whatever. But I think it depends on like that cute. That would probably sell with the little clown on it, even though people don't like clowns. It's just so unique. I think if it's a unique stick pin or unique tie pin like that, I think it would. I think there's a market for it. I think you got a lot of the oh, what are they called? The young men who like to dress, a little bit more edgy or a little bit more, like to wear the vintage items. I think they'd be interested in them. I think, yeah, there's a market for it.
Well, and
There
I
are-
like that style because they make very easy hat pins. Yeah, they
Yes,
slide in
yes.
very nicely into the bands, and so it's
Mhm.
it's a very versatile hat pin.
They really
I
do.
love them. Yeah.
Well, man, this has just been such a fantastic episode with so many pieces of eye candy and great information. And Delores, it's always a great time getting to chat with you.
Oh, thank you for having me, guys. And anytime you want to talk roaches, just call me.
And what we didn't do, Katie, we didn't talk about your brooch.
No.
Yes, let's talk about your brooch.
So the brooch I have on today, guys, is a Kramer, and I'll take it off so you guys can see it. Now, this I got really lucky with because I don't think the person knew what they had. And Kramer's a very good name out of New York, and this is just absolutely
Oh
stunning.
my God.
It's got the marquise and the rounds, all prong set. It's a silver tone piece, and it is marked Kramer on the back. So this is one of my latest finds, and it definitely is a prize piece in my collection.
That's gorgeous.
I'm like, ooh, that's pretty, girl. You're not over here looking at that brooch.
We need to start a brooch swap, Delores. That's what we need to do.
Oh, I love it. I'm into it. Let's do it.
Yep, I gotta take you sometime to the place at Fans and Stoves where I buy brooches, because the lady that runs that little booth, she travels all over the world to buy her jewelry. So she goes to France and Italy and Austria and shops the flea markets. I mean, she finds amazing stuff, and she's just got the best collection I think I've ever seen.
Yes, take me with you.
Yeah.
Call me. FaceTime me.
FaceTime one time and go over there. Well, folks, this has just been fantastic. And if you have any questions, comments, you can leave that down below in the comment section. And of course, we'll be running this as a premiere. So a lot of people that are watching will be able to comment in the live feed when we run this as a premiere. And of course, you can always leave a comment later. And Patrick has his fabulous.
I hate to follow your Kramer piece, but I think I've shown this one before. This is Peruvian silver. So this is marked 925 on the back. So I picked that, and this one I hadn't swapped out. But I do have a little Roosevelt. This is one of those little tab back pins and campaign pin, which I got from Skunky Junk. So it's got the little fold back tabs, got the Union Made.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, and so it's perfect in a hat band because it just clips right on to the hat band. So.
Oh, that's so good.
Not exactly the kind of brooches you guys are talking about, but hey,
hashtag
bring back hat pin. I'm totally into it.
And Delores and Patrick both have been posting to the hashtag that I started with Angela, hashtag the Brooch Gang. So if you're interested in being a part of the Brooch Gang, you can post on Instagram following this episode. Make sure you tag Delores, Patrick, and myself, and then use that hashtag the Brooch Gang, and we can see what brooches you have and what brooches you're wearing, which I think is really fun. So it's a great way to just share our brooches within this community. And we will have another episode of Duo Dive coming out next Wednesday at 9:30. So Patrick, you want to tell everyone about that?
So next Wednesday will be March 16th. And so perfect timing. We will be hosting Duo Dive. Will be hosting Cindy from Mimi's Treasure Cottage and her collection of St. Patrick's Day items. So
that'd be so good. Oh my God.
Yeah, she has an amazing collection of vintage St. Patrick's Day. So really looking forward to that. Just had to kind of figure out what day of the week and calendar we're in. So yes, that is what's happening for the next dive.
To forget dates and calendar, right? Because we're in such a weird time frame now with everything going on in the world. So it happens. But stay tuned, of course, for Instagram. Make sure you're following all of us. Trusty at you're different now on Instagram. You're Trusty.
I'm spelling it out now. People were getting confused. So I'm just Trusty HUCKSTER Mercantile on both YouTube and Instagram.
And Delores, where can people find you?
I am Miss Damn Jewelry on YouTube, and I'm Damn Jewelry UK on Instagram. And y'all, just so you know, the DAM are my initials.
I'm glad you said it because I knew they were your initials. So then I was wondering if you were DAM, not saying the word damn.
No, I just said the word damn.
And I love that you're doing the British spelling of jewelry. So it makes me second guess every time I spell the word. I'm like, wait, which one's right? They're both right.
If I don't spell it like that here, it'll autocorrect me to spell it like that.
And your UK customers probably won't find it if you spell it a different way.
Exactly.
Well, and Dolores is also on Etsy. She has her Etsy shop,
Yes.
so make sure you check that out as well. And do you have any other fun sales or anything coming up, Dolores?
I honestly, on the 19th, I have a live sale from the UK with my friend Jessica Thrifty Shutterbug.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome. Love her
So,
channel
and then
too.
yeah, she's good too. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
she's
love Jessica.
fantastic.
That's my thrifting buddy. And then on the 20th, me and Beth from Carolina Princess Sweet Treats and Pretties are having a live haul on my channel as well.
Oh, nice.
Yay! That's going to be fabulous. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this episode of Duo Dive. It's always fun to record these, particularly when we have people from the UK. And I'm so glad that you guys were able to join in for this. And we will see you in the future. And of course, before then, we will see you over on Instagram. So I hope, as always, folks, that you will stay in, stay safe, and bend YouTube. Bye bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.